Expressive insights into George VI, the king who didn't want to be king. The greatest honour lies in serving others. King George VI of the United Kingdom. George VI earned the moniker Reluctant King when his elder brother Edward VIII abdicated the throne in 1936. Known for navigating the challenges of World War II and being Queen Elizabeth II's father, George's reign, spanning only 16 years, left a significant mark on modern British history. Beyond his well-known speech impediment, his reign was marked by health issues and wartime tribulations, making him a distinctive figure in the annals of British monarchy. Explore the accuracies and inaccuracies of the King's speech, delve into his stance on Hitler, unravel the tragedies he employed to overcome his stammer, and even uncover the mysteries behind wardrobe malfunctions during his coronation. Here are some facts shedding light on King George VI. Upon his birth, the future King George VI was named Albert Frederick Arthur George. However, this name did not find universal approval. His maternal grandmother, the Duchess of Teck, foresaw a different destiny, expressing hope that his last name might replace the less favoured one. Among intimate circles, he was affectionately known as Bertie. Ascending to the throne as the fourth in line, Albert chose his fourth name, officially adopting George VI, to emphasise continuity with his father, George V. Despite his reluctance in assuming the role over his older brother, George aimed to present a facade of normalcy. Despite his privileged upbringing, George's childhood was marred by health challenges. Apart from his well-documented stammer, he grappled with chronic stomach issues and was characterised as easily frightened and somewhat prone to tears. Additionally, he wore corrective splints due to his knock knees during much of his youth. Contrary to his health struggles, George was very athletic in his youth. He even participated in the men's double tournament at Wimbledon in 1926, a prelude to his eventual kingship. Graduating at the bottom of his class at the Royal Navy College, Osborne, in 1911, George proceeded to Royal Navy College, Dartmouth. His progression, despite academic challenges, was facilitated by his father's royal status, making examinations a mere formality. Although George served during World War I, his involvement in combat was limited. His persistent health issues, including ulcer problems, necessitated surgery in November 1917. At 25, George earned the moniker Industrial Prince when his father tasked him with representing the Crown on tours of coal mines, factories, rail yards, and other industrial sites. George displayed a genuine interest in the working conditions of his subjects, serving as president of the Industrial Welfare Society. Before ascending to the throne, George held the courtesy titles of Duke of York, Earl of Inverness, and Baron Killarney. His eldest brother, the future Edward VIII, claimed the title of Prince of Wales, leaving George with these three titles, at least for the time being. George attended Trinity College, Cambridge, where he studied history, civics, and economics under the renowned historian R.V. Lawrence. Unfortunately, his academic pursuits were cut short after a year, when his father deemed George's skills better suited for representing the royal family on tours, diverting him from his studies. During his 1939 tour of North America, George forged a strong relationship with US President Franklin D. Roosevelt. These bonds were believed to play a crucial role in shifting North America away from the isolated stance in the early stages of World War II. George proposed to Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon 3 times before she accepted. Bowes-Lyon cited concerns about the significant lifestyle changes that come with being a member of the royal family as her reason for hesitation, a very valid consideration. Initially, the BBC sought to broadcast Prince Albert and Elizabeth's wedding live on radio. However, the clergy at Westminster Abbey rejected this idea, and the couple married off at the airwaves on April 26, 1923, avoiding the spectacle of a media circus surrounding royal weddings. The King's speech highlighted George's prolonged battle with his stammer. A failed speech on Halloween 1925 led him to seek help from Australian speech therapist Lionel Logue. Through breathing exercises, George's oral fluency significantly improved, although he never completely conquered his stammer. Upon King George V's death, Prince Albert's brother ascended to the throne as Edward VIII. Albert became the heir presumptive since Edward was unmarried with no children. However, Edward's determination to marry Wallis Simpson, an American socialite with two-time divorcee, led him to abdicate in favour of love over the crown. When Edward's abdication created the need for a new monarch, George was not the sole candidate. With 3 living brothers in 1936, Prince Henry, Duke of Gloucester, emerged as a potential successor. Due to Henry being the only brother with a son, as opposed to George, who had 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Margaret, discussions arose about appointing Henry for the sake of male continuity. In 1931, Canadian Prime Minister R.B. Bennett proposed that Prince Albert assume the role of Governor-General of Canada. The suggestion, involving such a high-ranking member of the royal family, stirred significant controversy and was ultimately rejected by George V, Albert's father. George deemed that Edward had relinquished all royal titles, including Royal Highness, by abdicating the throne. While George bestowed upon Edward the title Duke of Windsor, this designation did not extend to his wife or any offspring. Before stepping down, Edward VIII was slated for a coronation at Westminster Abbey on the 12th of May 1937. Although this plan never materialised, the same date was repurposed for George's coronation. George VI's coronation marked a departure from tradition by having his mother, Queen Mary, in attendance, providing much-needed support to her son. At his coronation, George's crown was mistakenly placed on his head the wrong way, leading to an awkward fumbling of the royal headwear by the Archbishop of Canterbury. George's opportunity to wear his crown nearly slipped away. Even before the Archbishop misplaced it, the Dean of Winchester stumbled while carrying the crown of St. Edward's to George's coronation, nearly causing significant damage. Fortunately, the legendary headgear was secured to a cushion by a ribbon. During the 1940s Blitz on London, the King and Queen of England narrowly escaped death at Buckingham Palace when 2 German bombs exploded in the courtyard. The Queen's defiant response, "I am glad we have been bombed, it makes me feel we can look the East End in the face," resonated with the public, solidifying the royal family's image as steadfast allies during World War II. Starting in September 1940, King George and Prime Minister Winston Churchill convened for a private and candid lunch every Tuesday to discuss the ongoing war. This practice endured for 4.5 years. In a departure from tradition, George allowed Winston Churchill to join him on the balcony at Buckingham Palace during the Victory in Europe celebrations of 1945. Under George's reign, the British Empire formally dissolved, giving way to the Commonwealth. Consequently, George became the inaugural head of the Commonwealth. George holds the distinction of being the final King of England to bear the title Emperor of India. Following the partition of British India into India and Pakistan in 1947, George adopted the titles King of India and King of Pakistan. While he relinquished the title of King of India upon its transition to a republic in 1950, he retained the title King of Pakistan until his passing. The health challenges that plagued George from his youth persisted into his adulthood. Prolonged chain smoking took a toll, resulting in lung cancer. In 1951, George underwent the removal of his left lung, casting a shadow over the king's ailing health. In 1949, George faced a serious threat to his right leg due to an arterial blockage. compelling him to postpone his scheduled tour of Australia and New Zealand for urgent surgery. On the 6th of February 1952, King George VI peacefully passed away in his sleep at the age of 56. Elizabeth, his successor, received the news while on tour in Kenya and promptly returned to Britain to ascend to the throne as Queen Elizabeth II. During their wedding, Elizabeth, George's bride, placed her bouquet on the tomb of the unknown warrior. The symbolic gesture, commemorating her lost brother Fergus, has since become a tradition followed by every royal bride. While George and Elizabeth enjoyed a happy marriage, their honeymoon had its challenges. Elizabeth contracted whooping cough in Scotland, adding an unromantic twist to their early days together. Did the King's speech therapist ever use profanity in the presence of His Majesty? Contrary to cinematic portrayals, Lionel Logue's grandson expresses skepticism about such behaviour. Additionally, he firmly believes that his grandfather would never have addressed the King as Bertie as depicted in the King's speech. George provided financial support to his brother Edward during the latter's exile. However, Edward would frequently call George, seeking additional funds and pressuring him to bestow the title of Duchess upon Wallis Simpson. Eventually, George instructed that the X's king calls not be connected, marking a royal version of being left unread. Before significant royal speeches, George VI and Lionel Logue practiced tongue twisters to help mitigate the king's stammer. Their bond persisted until the king's demise. Lionel Logue, renowned for his work on the King's Speech, was so esteemed by the royal family that he maintained correspondence with the Queen Mother even after George's death. Upon Logue's demise in 1953, just a year after George's, the Queen and Queen Mother sent royal representatives to attend his funeral. Can you hear me? Ironically, George VI became the first monarch to address the public post-coronation via live radio. Speaking deliberately to overcome his well-known stutter, he remarked, "Never before has a newly crowned king been able to talk to all of his people in their own homes on the day of his coronation." While Edward VIII was the first royal family member to pilot an aircraft, George VI became the first fully certified pilot among them. True to his character, Bertie adhered to the rules. Born during Queen Victoria's reign, George's birth coincided with the 34th anniversary of the death of his great-grandfather, Prince Albert, Victoria's cherished consort. Despite the joyous occasion of a new baby, George's family faced anxiety about sharing this day of mourning with the reigning matriarch. To ease Queen Victoria's concerns, they named the baby Albert. In an alternative reality, Elizabeth II might not exist because her father would have married an Australian woman called Sheila, Lady Loughborough. George harboured deep feelings for Loughborough, but the situation was complicated as she was already married. The infatuation came to an end in April 1920, when George's father offered him the prestigious Dukedom of York to sever the connection. In the same year, George ended his interest in Lady Loughborough. He fell in love with his future wife, Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. It seemed George was smitten with her from the very start and was determined to make her his wife. Less than a year after ascending to the throne, Edward VIII abdicated December 11, 1936, leaving it to his younger brother, the future George VI. George, for his part, was a hesitant king. The day before the abdication, he wrote in his diary about breaking down and sobbing when informing his mother of the news. George's early reign was profoundly influenced by World War II. Constitutionally bound to support Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, George endorsed Chamberlain's policy of appeasement towards Adolf Hitler. In a gesture of solidarity, George and his wife Elizabeth broke tradition by allowing Chamberlain onto the iconic balcony at Buckingham Palace. This close association with Chamberlain's Nazi appeasement had been deemed by some historians as the most unconstitutional act by a British sovereign in the present century. In conclusion, the life and reign of King George VI were marked by a series of extraordinary events, from the unprecedented circumstances surrounding his coronation to the challenges of World War II and his pivotal role in the formation of the Commonwealth. The intricacies of his royal relationships, health struggles, and the impact of historical events on his monarchy reveal a multifaceted journey. Despite the reluctance with which he assumed the throne and the constitutional dilemmas that he faced, King George VI left an undeniable mark on British history. His resilience, commitment to duty, and contributions to global diplomacy, especially during times of war, solidify his place as a notable figure in the annals of British history.